Hey, my bride, let's go for a ride in my newfangled automobile. Just where we will go, nobody knows, but it's sure a great way to feel. Behind the wheel of the speed meter steel, it's my newfangled automobile.
Hello and welcome to Vintage Car History. I'm Wild Bill. Now, throughout the uncivilized world, you will find car clubs. Groups of people who are extremely enthusiastic about their rides and want to show them to the general public. In the USA, these folks and their cars can be found at local fairs, coffee shops, and Dairy Queen parking lots across the country. The owners sitting in lawn chairs beside their machine, ready to answer any questions passers-by may ask and defend their choice of car from all opposition. These gearheads are loyal to their brand, and the rivalries abound. Ford guys don't like Chevys. Chevy guys don't like Fords. The Mopar guys hate everybody. And they'll throw rocks at each other, figuratively, not literally, I hope, and defend their steel steed. Yet such rivalries are not new. In the US, amongst the first was between two American makes of pre-World War I sports cars, one being Stutz and the other Mercer. So today, let's take a look at the history of Mercer. Mercer began in Trenton, New Jersey as a project to keep some millionaires occupied. Their main instigators were the Cussar twins, Anthony and John, and the Roebling brothers, Charles and Ferdinand, and Charles's youngest son, Washington II. All of them were born into money, had both time and cash in abundance, and were all friends wanting to get into business together in some way. And they ended up building the first true sports car in the USA. Here's how it came down. The Cussar twins were the sons of Rudolph, a Swiss mechanical engineer that immigrated to the U.S. in 1867 when the twins were 5 years old. Settling down in Trenton, he owned several businesses and was a successful manufacturer of gears and machine parts. Anthony and John received a quality education, young Tony pursuing an engineering degree while Johnny going after a career in business. Both were successful, particularly Tony. He would make millions in the ice trade, utility services, and also railroads, which he pursued with the help of his brother John. Through their escapades, they came to know and became good friends with another prominent family in Trenton, the Roeblings. Have you ever heard the old phrase, "If you believe that, I've got a bridge to sell you"? Well, the Roeblings could actually do that. It was in the 1860s and 70s that John Roebling and his eldest son, Washington, the elder in this case, designed and built the Brooklyn Bridge. John had other sons, including Ferdinand and Charles. These two sons ran the family business, while others were bridge building. And the business was a large foundry where they manufactured massive steel ropes and cables, which are handy if you plan on building suspension bridges. Freddie and Chaz were both skilled engineers and businessmen, having their degrees from what was then called the Trenton Business College. Freddie's son, Washington II, also received his degree and joined the family business. By 1900, the Roeblings had quite an engineering dynasty, and their friendship with the Cussars, who were now also bankers, bottlers, and brewers, as well as their other endeavors, and of much renown, would lead to Trenton's greatest make of car. It started with another friendship, this time between young Washington II and his college friend, William Walter. Walter had been making a few cars of notable quality in the New York City area, but had not found success. Washington had an idea. If he moved to Trenton and helped him out, perhaps they could make cars. He pitched the idea to his dad, who in turn pitched it to John Cussar. And in 1906, the Walter automobile was begun, using an old brewery that the Cussars owned in nearby Hamilton, New Jersey, but weren't using. However, Walter did not have the money to keep things going, and the new factory wasn't free. By 1909, he was broke, and the Roeblings and Kussers bought him out. Thus, the Roeblings and Kussers took over. They had the engineering knowledge, business savvy, money, and connections to build whatever car they desired. This was an all-star lineup. Frederick Roebling as president, Washington II as general manager, John Kusser as the finance guy, and they wanted to make cars that reflected the prominence and education of the management team. To do that, they would need to make an automobile unlike anything else being built in America, so that car, like themselves, would be in a class by itself. First, they renamed the concern after the county in which it was located, Mercer. Charles Roebling got involved with the engineering of the car, and with the help of a couple of other designers he hired, produced the first production Mercer, called the Speedster, in early 1910. It used a 4-cylinder L-head Beaver engine with opposing cylinders of some 25 horsepower connected to a 3-speed transmission. Most notably, the car was very light and low to the ground. It was fairly fast and could handle very well. Yet Washington felt it needed improvement, and along with an engineer he hired, a Mr. Finley Porter, designed a new car later that year. This would be the famous 35R. A 5-liter T-head engine replaced the Beaver, and this engine could put out some 60 horsepower, yet was significantly smaller and lighter than typical racing engines of the day. Multi-disc clutch, 3-speed tranny, low to the ground, live axles. This car was both fast and nimble, able to reach speeds well over 70 miles an hour and maintain such speeds. This new model, the Raceabout, began to race all across the U.S. and beyond. It was light, quick, and unlike many future U.S. cars, could actually corner at speed. The Raceabout was one of the few production cars of the time anywhere in the world that you could purchase from the showroom, drive it to a race, win the race, and then drive it home. Tragedy struck the Mercer Company when the Roeblings went to England and returned on the RMS Titanic. They did not survive. The company continued on into the 1920s, and the reputation of the Mercer as America's ultimate sports car was only seriously challenged by studs prior to World War I. And when a Bearcat owner met a Raceabout owner, the rocks would fly with insults. "You'd have to be nuts to drive a Stutz. Well, it's worser to drive a Mercer." And so on. These rivalries live on today across the world. A powerful, fast car versus a light and nimble one. I doubt that argument will ever be settled. But in the USA, it all began with Mercer. Thanks for watching Vintage Car History, and we'll see you next week. Peace.